Good morning, guys. I wanted to just make a quick video to talk about the quiz on Thursday. Everyone rocked the quiz on Tuesday, but people seem to have a little bit more trouble, and the quiz Tuesday was covering The Tempest, if you remember. But people did seem to have a little bit more trouble with Kipling and Robinson's poems, so I just wanted to check in. The thing that seemed to catch people the most was that first question where we were looking at the lines from Robinson, and the ones that got most mixed up were, I'll just read the stanza that it came from. So if you've got the poem in front of you, you might pull it out and just take a look at it. So it's from stanza 5, and it reads, "O barbarous power, relentless fate, does heaven's high will decree that some should sleep on beds of state, some in the roaring sea, some nursed in splendor deal oppression's blow, while worth and Draco pine in slavery and woe." So if you look really carefully at this stanza, which maybe some of you were just looking at the words in the quiz, and so it was a little bit harder, but if you look at the whole context of the stanza, it's probably a little bit easier to understand what's going on there. So she begins that stanza by sort of asking, does heaven, right, create a distinction between these two people, right? Which of course the implied answer is no, heaven doesn't. And so then she kind of lays out what are those distinctions between the whites and the slaves, right? So that line that says, does heaven's will decree that some should sleep on beds of state, right? So kind of this empowered position, right? Sleeping in comfortable beds of state, right? Sort of think of government, powerful positions, right? So does heaven say that some people should get to sleep on those beds while other people sleep in the roaring sea? And of course, the other people there would be slaves who often would either fall off of the boats or jump off the boats because they would rather drown than go to slavery, right? So that idea of sleeping in the sea. Or in this case of this particular poem, the shipwreck, where the slaves, because they were locked below, all drowned. Most of you kind of got that distinction, that the whites were the ones sleeping on beds of state, and then the slaves were the ones sleeping in roaring sea. Most of you also got the last line, right? While Worth and Draco pine in slavery and woe. So of course it's the slaves that are pining away. So pining kind of means either dying or sort of bemoaning or just kind of withering away in some way, right, in slavery and woe. But it was the second to last line in that stanza, line 29, that seemed to give people some trouble. So the nursed in splendor and deal oppression's blow. So it might help if you think about the fact that nursed in splendor, nursed, right? Think about that idea, nursed. Someone is brought up, they grow up, in splendor. So some people, right, this line is, again, creating those distinctions. Did heaven say that some people should be nursed in splendor, right? Some people should grow up rich. So of course that's the whites that are nursed in splendor. But notice if you look at that line, it's those same people, the ones nursed in splendor, who are dealing oppression's blow. And I don't know if some of you are reading it like deal with oppression's blow, and maybe that's why you thought it would relate to slaves. But I think that word deal there is meaning to inflict, right? To give out oppression, to inflict oppression. And of course it connects in that line if you read the whole line, right? Some nursed in splendor deal oppression's blow, right? So it's the ones who are rich, who are living in splendor, they are the ones who are dealing or inflicting oppression's blow. So that one should have been also, she was making the distinction that those are the whites, the ones that are the oppressors. And then some of the other confusion from that quiz was just about Kipling's poem, which I know, again, it's hard, and I kind of tried to warn you guys in the video that I sent out. It's hard to read it as straight, right? We think Kipling is somehow a satire, or we try really hard to read it that he's defending the natives and critiquing the white colonizers, but he's just not, right? He is a colonizer. He believes in England's mission of colonizing, and he uses really demeaning terms to describe the natives. So if you were kind of missing out on points from the Kipling poem, I just really encourage you to go read the context notes, because I really talk about the history of that poem, and what Kipling is doing there, and kind of his militant message to countries like America and England that they need to civilize, uncivilized nations. And that was just his viewpoint. So of course, beyond those materials, if you have further questions about anything you missed on that quiz, just email me and let me know.